Hey, what's going on, Beans? It's time for another one of my favorite videos, the conspiracy videos. And today we have one from my favorite conspiracy bean, Azabeth, one of the best boys who sends me in so many conspiracies, and this is by far one of her best. So let's get started with this conspiracy that Mount Shiveer is actually a volcano. Now, hear me out on this one, because it may just convince you. So this conspiracy starts with a picture. In fact, it's a picture from the beta way back before Crystal Sands was redone. And you might just say right now, hey, Julian, Crystal Sands has been redone, so none of this counts, but this is in the background that this happened. This isn't actually in the part of Crystal Sands that was redone, and obviously the background isn't going to change. They're not exactly renovating like the landscape behind you. If you look really closely, you can very clearly see this exploding volcano in the background of Crystal Sands. Now, a lot of people have pointed to it and wrongly concluded that this is just that volcano that we see on the Play Wild map that I've pointed to so many times in these conspiracy videos. But, well, that doesn't totally make sense. If you actually pay very close attention, you'll notice that from this perspective, that actually is on the opposite side of where you would be seeing a volcano from Crystal Sands. So basically, the volcano you see from Crystal Sands is actually on the other side of where that volcano appears on the Play Wild map, if that makes sense. So this means that there is definitely more than one volcano in Jamaa. And there have been speculations that there are tons of different volcanoes in Jamaa. There's one in Greely's Inferno, in the search for Greely. There's one in Falling Phantoms. There's this one in the background. And then there's possibly Mount Shiveer. But this is definitely proof that these are two separate volcanoes. No matter how many volcanoes you want to believe there are definitely at least two. So now the question of, how do we know it's Mount Shiveer? Well, first of all, geographically, it just makes sense. If you look to the back, you'll see that it's basically behind it. But just as Mount Shiveer is not directly behind Crystal Sands on the map, the volcano is slightly to the left, with Mount Shiveer to the left of the back of Crystal Sands, which makes sense and adds up. But of course, wouldn't we know if Mount Shiveer was actually a volcano and not a gigantic ice slide with like random stuff all over it and like ice and cold everywhere and swirly winds? And it was actually like an active volcano? First of all, obviously it's not erupting anymore, and I don't think it plans to in the future. We don't think. But there are a few things about Mount Shiveer besides the geographic actual location that actually hint at it being an old volcano. So, first of all, not to use circular logic here, but the photo does show that it was active at one point. So what evidence do we have that Mount Shiveer was previously an active volcano? Well, look at the hot springs that are embedded all around Mount Shiveer. Hot springs are a byproduct of volcanoes, and when water is heated up deep below the surface by magma, well, that water reaches the surface and results in a hot spring because the water reaches its vaporization point and comes out as water vapor on the ground. And then, hot air rises and it just comes out the top. And pressurized hot air springs out from the deep underground of the volcano. Okay, so now the question of, if we see that Mount Shiveer is in the exact place that a volcano should be, and also that it has magma springs all over the place, why isn't this a bigger deal? Why has no one heard of this before? And why haven't the alphas told us about it? Well, the first reason, of course, would have to be some sort of panic. I mean, if the alphas told us that this place where tons of animals live and we go and visit every single day could actually explode and seep down and destroy Jamaa Township, well, we'd be in a lot of trouble. That would be pretty bad. If Animal Jam wanted to add some sort of volcano, which is a natural element of life, it just occurs naturally in the natural nature world, well, a good way to do it would be to put it as like a mountain, so that it's not this gigantic, violent, explosive volcano that you're on at every moment, just to keep it a little toned down. And then, of course, the fact that we have really big problems to deal with right now. I mean, alphas are faking their own deaths, and phantoms are capturing our heartstones and taking sheep and building gigantic fortresses. We're not exactly worried about a dormant volcano, even if it's right next to our main township. You see, even if we were really worried about that, the best thing we could do would be to go and explore new lands that we could move into in case this bean ever erupted and destroyed all the little beans like Jamaa Township and Coral Canyons and all of those nice little beans. And then we could find some sort of island or place on the faraway map where the volcano wouldn't reach because of water or simple distance. And in order to do that, the best thing we could do is actually to go and fight the Phantom Boys and take some of their land, because if you don't know, the actual lore of Animal Jam itself says that in order to get a new land, animals and alphas actually have to go out into a new land that has not been discovered and drive all of the phantoms out of it, because currently phantoms control all of the lands that we do not own, that you cannot visit every single day. So that is the purpose of the adventures and all of that kind of stuff, is to actually go and discover new lands. And if there was some gigantic volcano pressuring our way of life every single day, well, the best thing that we could do, again, would be to find these new lands. And therefore, it makes sense that the alphas have kept this secret from us, while also having this strange urge to go and push for new lands, possibly because there's some sort of looming natural disaster we have to escape from. Now the question is, why the heck are you allowed to go to Mount Shiveer if it's a volcano? Well, first of all, of course, the panic thing of the alphas haven't told you, so if they let you go in there, there's less suspicion. But also, it hasn't exploded for 6 or 7 years, as we know from the fact that the beta picture was taken 6 or 7 years ago, which means that when Crystal Sands was renovated and apparently Mount Shiveer became an ice thing in the background, well, it hasn't erupted since, which means that it's been dormant ever since. And if a volcano hasn't erupted in 6 years, well, it's definitely still likely that it will erupt again. There are volcanoes that can go much longer without erupting and then still be a big threat to society. But again, we are countering this threat by looking for new lands. It's not as if we're just ignoring the problem. And there's no point just like consolidating everyone into coral canyons, because that thing would just erupt onto you. There's no escape from that. Now, what are the implications of Mount Shiveer being a volcano, and why is that so important? First of all, we could all die. Yes, Animal Jam could end, and that's probably not going to happen because Animal Jam wants their game to keep going. But what really could Animal Jam use a volcano for rationally to advance the storyline and to make the game work better? Well, let's say that the gold conspiracy is true. If you haven't seen it, go ahead and check it out. It's my video on why River Race was removed, and it basically covers this huge theory that the gold in Mount Shiveer and that tunnel that you go is actually a gold mine where all of that gold and wealth that we have in Animal Jam comes from. Well, there are a few things that the Phantoms could do if they took this land that make it so important, and the first of those is to take that gold mine. Basically, we get all of our wealth and all of our tools and armor and things from this gold. There's a reason that all of our best armor and most expensive armor is made out of gold, and if gold is taken away, we don't really have a source of currency. I mean, where do the gems come from? I assume they're also from the same mine, because there's nowhere else in Animal Jam to really get gems, unless you want to count that one little tiny spot where there are like 6 gems in Mount Shiveer. But other than that, it seems as though we use gold and things we get from this mine for currency in Animal Jam, and if the Phantoms could take this land and therefore cut us off from this gold/gem mine, well, all of a sudden we are stranded with no money, and we have to like completely rebuild our economic system with things that didn't really have value, because this is the only place to get minerals and things that are actually difficult to get and have like a set price and would actually increase slowly over time with proper inflation. Oh, and also I forgot to mention the bigger one. If the Phantoms got it, they could kind of threaten to destroy Jamaa, because, you know, Phantoms? There are a lot of them. There are plenty of Phantom boys. The Phantoms don't care if they lose some Phantoms. There's a reason they use them as like lane guards and put them like right next to Chomper plants so that you can go and shove them in the Chomper plants. And then there are always more. The Phantoms don't really seem to care about their own kind. They don't mind just letting people go die. So it seems that what they would do, if this was some sort of master Phantom plan, they would send in their little proto-Phantoms to go in and capture Mount Shiveer. Let's say we went and tried to fight the Phantoms, well, then we started a Phantom War. And they just send in more and more and more Phantoms, and all of a sudden they're invading our homeland. And this is a problem because the Phantoms could almost definitely win if they actually invaded our homeland. They have Phantom Kings and Phantom Fortresses, and our gods are dead, and our alphas, like half of them are missing or hate each other or think that they're dead. Like, our governing system is a mess on Animal Jam. The Phantoms could destroy us. I honestly don't know why they haven't. Here's the way they could do it. So let's say the Phantoms get control of the volcano. Obviously, they can't press some magic button and make the volcano explode all over Jamaa and ruin everything, thus sacrificing themselves in the process, which, by the way, is okay because, you know, these Phantoms are easily replaceable, and they just have giant Phantom factories, and they can just send in their little teeny proto-Phantoms that they don't really care about and basically destroy their biggest nemesis for the cost of like a few hundred proto-Phantoms that they probably didn't really need anyways, that would probably have been sacrificed in an actual war anyways. And so the only things that we could do would be either to fight the Phantoms, and then therefore start a war with them, and then probably end up losing because they have all these huge tools, or 2, find new land and escape from the volcano, but then the Phantoms can just move into our land. And of course, we saw in Greely's Inferno that the Phantoms actually did have control of a volcano eruption. It seems that the Phantoms had this power not only to pollute nature, but to control it and pervert it into this whatever evil purpose they want it to. So when the Phantoms get control of something like that, well, they can actually make it turn against us, like what they do with the Chomper plants, where they don't like attack you. If they pollute a Chomper plant, you can no longer use it. And so they might actually do the same thing with a volcano. Just think about that. If they could get control of the volcano like they did in Greely's Inferno, and this time a volcano that's inside Jamaa Township, well, if they got that thing active and released all the energy that we see in those magma springs, that would be the end of Jamaa. So, just want to keep you boys ready to defeat those Phantom boys in case they ever come through and try to take Mount Shiveer from us, even though I'm sure Animal Jam would never actually let Jamaa be overrun by lava and magma rock. It's fun to speculate, and it's fun to think about where the lore might take us. And this, to me, seems like a pretty plausible way that the lore could progress. So anyways, Beans, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed these conspiracy videos, and of course, I'll see you in my next video. Bye!